The Big Law Business Report is proudly sponsored by PVI Furniture and Big Law Business Development.
Where big law meets big business, this is the Big Law Business Report. I'm your host, Brian Brown. Joining me in the studio today is Tom Powell of the law offices of Thomas J. Powell. Phil Hampton, intellectual property attorney with Haynes Boone. Darrell Mottley, intellectual property attorney with the law firm of Banner Whitcoff. Stuart Evans of Evans Sterrett. And Will Brammer, CEO and General Counsel of Digitize-a-Nation. Let's get started. Welcome to the Big Law Business Report, where big law meets big business. I'm your host, Brian Brown. Joining me in the studio today is Tom Powell, the law offices of Thomas J. Powell. Tom, thanks again for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
So Tom, you obviously do a lot of things, but one of your specialties and one of the things that you're known for, at least I've known you over the years, is the construction law, as a construction lawyer. So Tom, kind of walk me through a scenario. I'm a construction company, right? And I want to bid on a contract. Maybe it's here in the United States, or maybe it's internationally. I know you've done some international business as well. Let's just talk here in the States. So I want to bid on a contract. When should I get Tom Powell involved? When should I get your team talking to me?
It's a good question, Brian, and it's one I'm often presented with. The saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, really does apply here. Oftentimes what we find is clients or potential clients either, number one, don't even review a contract or don't review it adequately and with some precision. Or number two, they review it and they sign the contract anyway or submit the bid for a very simple reason, to get the work.
Business, right? Sure, absolutely.
So what we can do, and what I would suggest to most of these folks, is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. You can oftentimes save an awful lot of headache and heartache simply by having a competent lawyer look through your contract and identify the biggest parts of that contract or the biggest provisions that create risk for you.
Right. So Tom, that's great, and I appreciate wanting to have a competent lawyer, but to me, construction law is a specialty as much as a cardiologist. I mean, all doctors know how the human heart works, but if I'm having heart issues, I don't know if I necessarily want to go to my podiatrist or my dermatologist. Granted, again, they're medical professionals. I kind of want to go to a specialist. So I would probably lean a little bit more toward you, because there may be some things in that bid that are construction-ease, if I can use that word, that I may not understand.
Yeah, there's a couple things that you really need. First of all, you need someone who works in the business and is familiar with the business. That is absolutely true. You need someone who knows the terms of art. Now, it helps a great deal if that person also has worked in the field, maybe an engineer, can look at the plans, can look at the specs, and highlight the real risk areas for you. That also helps. But it's sort of the total package, really.
Sure.
You really need someone who's experienced with contracts. It helps if they happen to have a technical or engineering background. And as well, it helps to know where you're going to have if you are going to have a dispute, where you're going to go for resolution of that dispute.
So Tom, talk on that. Just touch on that for a second. Where you want to go for resolution dispute? What do you mean by that?
Well, most of the times, your contract will spell out sort of what happens in the event of a dispute and
Sure.
how you address it. And that may be some form of alternate dispute resolution, or it may be mediation, for example,
Sure.
or it may be arbitration, it may be court, or you might find that you're in the federal courts in the jurisdiction you're in, and you have someone who sues you and asks for a jury trial. You want to make sure that whoever you engage has experience in that type of venue and with that type of resolution mechanism. I'll tell you, there's just not a lot of lawyers who really know in the construction field, because it's a technical field and it's document intensive. There's just not a lot of lawyers who really get to try a lot of jury trials or bench trials in a federal or state court level.
Got you. Well, Tom, believe it or not, We're out of time.
All right.
So, but I always appreciate your insight. Every time you come to the studio, I just keep learning more and more, and I'm sure our viewers are learning more and more as well.
Terrific. Thanks for having me, Brian.
Thanks, always my pleasure.
All right.
We'll be right back.
What does your office furniture say about you and your company? Is it making the right impression for your company and your employees? At PVI Office Furniture, we have office furniture for every budget. We'll make sure your office space is sending the right message.
Fast, excellent, affordable. Business grows with PVI. Visit our showroom in Frederick, Maryland, or online at pvipvi.com.
Where big law meets big business, welcome to the Big Law Business Report. I'm your host, Brian Brown. Joining us in the studio again today is Mr. Darrell Mottley, intellectual property attorney. Darrell, thanks for joining me again.
Glad to be here.
So, Darrell, today's topic is the Internet of Things. There's a lot of conversation around the Internet of Things.
Right, right.
What are the Internet of Things?
Glad you asked, Ryan. Internet of Things is kind of a concept of the internet with
Right.
multiple kind of devices connected to it that sort of work to censor and monitor different aspects of your life or business. Or,
Right. So when you talk about connected to the internet, are you talking about the wearable devices where people are able to monitor, I guess, their heart rate or how much their steps they take during the course of the day?
Absolutely. It could be those devices and transmit data back and forth through the internet, through some cloud storage computer somewhere in some other country, maybe, wherever it may be, who knows.
Yeah, who knows, you're right about that.
But that's generally the thought is that there's billions and billions of devices, sort of the old Carl Sagan, billions and billions of stars,
Sure, absolutely.
devices out there that are connected to the internet that can be controlled by their own little processors operating and talking back to each other.
Got you. So as an example of the Internet of Things, like automobiles where you can obviously you have your Bluetooth capabilities. So your
Sure.
car connects to your phone for one to be able to make phone calls or stream music.
Yes, and that's the more familiar aspects to
Sure.
maybe the consumers that use it, but also if you look at the car aspect, the engines have all these sensors that operate. The engine is more like a computer nowadays,
Right, sure.
How many times you see the little chip they have to put inside to make it work, right?
Right.
So
At an unbelievable cost.
Right. Well, and they monitor all that, and then there's software involved in that aspect, and intellectual property patents will deal with that, or maybe copyright with the software will deal with that, and that data gets collected and moves up into the cloud or storage.
Sure.
Some people have seen computer apps or software apps on their mobile phone, and they can see their tire pressure,
Sure.
their last oil change, or oil life, or that's
Right.
sort of what they can see, but internally there's a lot of different sensors and different things when you go to the mechanic,
Right.
or now I guess you're a computer software guy.
Sure. Now, so I'll put myself in the position of a manufacturer. I have a wearable device, right? So I've
Right.
got these orthotics that one can put in their shoes, and it's going to connect to my smartphone. So
Right.
in this particular instance, we're talking about obviously being an intellectual property attorney. Where do I bring Darrell Mottley into the conversation about this wearable device? How do I protect that intellectual property in so much that, okay, I might be the manufacturer of the device, but obviously there's the company that makes the smartphone. There's a
Right.
company that makes the software that talks to my device with a smartphone that stores everything in the cloud or some other remote location.
Right.
Where does Darrell Mottley fit in? How does Darrell Mottley help me, that manufacturer?
Well, let's say you're the manufacturer of the
wearable,
insoles,
yep,
of the
yep.
wearable device and the insoles. There's actually companies that do navigation with wearables things, so it's very much things. So if you're that company, I'd come in, or somebody like myself come in to address the patent protection, if you will, to get
Gotcha.
that intellectual property,
Right.
to how that, to kind of wrap and develop
Sure.
technology on the patent side for that particular product.
Gotcha.
And then, and that's the protection side. Maybe before they operate, before they start to think about, there may be somebody else doing that as well.
Right. I think
When
we've had this
you gotta make
conversation
sure,
before.
right? You got to make sure that there's not anybody else doing that.
Non-performing entity involved, right?
Potentially.
So Darrell, let's do this. Hold
Yeah.
that thought because we want to expand on that a little bit. We need to go to a break. We'll be right back on the Big Law Business Report.
A&A is your doorway to the world, to new experiences and untapped opportunities, to destinations like Tokyo and the rest of Asia. Our renowned Japanese hospitality makes even the furthest journey as effortless as a single step. And it's all by design.
Welcome back to the Big Law Business Report, where big law meets big business. We're going to continue our conversation with Stewart Evans, founder of Evans Starrett Law Firm. Stewart, thanks so much for joining me again.
Delighted to be here, Brian.
Well, Stewart, the hallmark of your law firm, as we talked about before, is proactive legal counsel. So let's go a little bit more in detail with that in and around trade secrets. So let's talk a little bit about what exactly is a trade secret, and then where does proactive legal counsel come in to working with the company? Not only a company maybe just getting started, or a company's been operating for a while, or maybe a company's been in business for decades.
Brian, a trade secret is nothing more than information from which independently you may derive some economic value, which
Okay.
can be either actual, can be potential, from not being generally known.
Gotcha.
And you got to treat it as a trade secret. That is, you got to keep it secret.
Gotcha.
And so it's basically the same principle. In order to be able to protect your valuable knowledge, you need to take certain steps to make sure that you are not going to be vulnerable to somebody misappropriating or taking your trade secrets or using them. And if they do, you'll be in a position to do something about it.
Okay, so let me see if I understand what a trade secret is. So let's say I'm in the pen business, and I've come up with a pen that basically you buy it one time and it never runs out of ink. You just dip it in some water or something like that, and the pen never runs out of ink. Would that be considered a trade secret? I mean, I would think that it would have some value to me.
Well, it could, and again, trade secrets are nothing more than knowledge or information.
Okay.
And it's what that information is about and what it does. Like I said, you got to be able to derive economic benefit from it. So in your example, if there was a formula or a process by which you were able to create the ink that never ran out, that would be a trade secret if you could show that, and indeed in your example, if you're selling it,
Sure.
you derive economic value.
Right.
But also you got to keep it secret. You know, a lot of people joke about the formula for Coca-Cola,
Right.
which, as you know, initially had cocaine in it.
Right.
But the legend is, that formula from the very beginning has been kept locked up in a safe. And so it's important that you identify what it is about your business from which you think you derive value, economic value, simply because it's not generally known. So the first step is to attempt to identify what your trade secrets might be.
Right.
And you need to be specific about it. And then you've got to document. It's always good to document how you get value from it. And then you need to protect it because one of the main components is that other people don't know about it.
Well, Stewart, as always, I think our biggest challenge when we sit down and talk is we just don't seem to have enough time. But I do look forward to inviting you back to the show and continuing our conversation and talk a little bit more about proactive legal counsel.
It's always nice to chat with you, Brian.
Well, thank you, Stewart. I appreciate you so much. We'll be back in a moment.
You know, when I first started out, it was all pencil and paper. The Surface Pro is very intuitive. With the pressure of my hand, I can draw lightly, just like I would with a real pencil. I've been a forensic artist for over 30 years. I do the composite sketches, which are the bad guy sketches. You need good resolution, powerful processor, because the computer has to start thinking as fast as my brain does. I do this because I want my artwork to help people.
Welcome to the Big Law Business Report, where big law meets big business. I'm your host, Brian Brown. In the studio today, I've got Phil Hampton, intellectual property attorney with the law firm of Haynes Boone. Phil, thanks for joining me today.
Well, thank you, Brian.
So, Phil, you're an intellectual property attorney. So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that some of your clients see or some of the things that you face working with your clients as far as their intellectual property is concerned. But before we go too deeply, let's just touch a little bit on what intellectual property is. I mean, that patents, is that copyrights? What's intellectual property, Phil?
Intellectual property is the term that was coined probably in the mid-'80s that encompasses patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets, and sometimes now even computer law.
Got you. So, Phil, I know you work with a wide variety of companies, particularly international companies. I know in some of the conversations that we have, we talk about an organization called the ITC. Is that the right organization?
Yes, the International Trade Commission. It's a agency of the federal government that actually decides some patent cases under its authority to stop unfair competition by foreign entities.
So when you talk about unfair competition by foreign entities, what do you mean by that?
Well, as the statute defines unfair competition to include patent infringement, trademark infringement, or any type of intellectual property infringement.
Got you. So if I have a situation where I know you've done some work with medical devices companies, so I've come up with what I believe is someone has developed a knee replacement technology, or maybe a stent or a catheter, and I take this and say, wow, this is pretty cool, and I make one just like it, but the quality maybe isn't there, but my price points are substantially lower. Would that be a scenario where if you were defending the company who made the original piece of equipment, would that be something that would end up in the ITC if I was an international company, or is it something totally different?
Well, it has to be something that's being imported into the United States.
Okay, so my product I made, I want to bring to the U.S.
If you're trying to import it into the U.S., the U.S. patent holder could file a complaint with the International Trade Commission.
Okay.
The advantage of filing a complaint in the International Trade Commission is that you basically have an entire patent infringement case in 9 months. And
Whoa.
generally they take a lot longer than 9 months.
So how do they get this done in 9 months?
Well, I mean, instead of a lot of things in the federal rules give you 30 days to respond, in the ITC you have 10 days to respond.
Wow. That's amazing. So to go back to this example I give, so I'm that company that has made this knockoff type of product. I'm trying to bring it into the United States. The company who makes the original product, I mean, couldn't they potentially say, well, hey, this knockoff product is going to hurt my business in the United States? What does the ITC do for them? Is it just, somebody infringed on the patent, or maybe the potential damages to that original equipment manufacturer's market share in the U.S.?
Well, see, that's the thing. The International Trade Commission, the patent owner cannot get any money damages. However, it's only 9 months, and what they can get if they prevail is a nationwide exclusion order, which means that the product cannot be imported into the United States at all by anyone.
Wow.
So that's often even more powerful than actually getting money damages.
Well, Phil, I mean, this is absolutely an unbelievably fascinating topic, and clearly, as stated previously, your wealth of knowledge is somewhat limitless. But I look forward to, Phil, having you come back on our show, and let's continue our discussion about the many other aspects of intellectual property law.
I look forward to it, Brian.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Here you go.
Okay.
Welcome to the Big Law Business Report, where big law meets big business. I'm your host, Brian Brown. We have in the studio again with us today, William Brammer, COO and General Counsel of Digitize-a-Nation. Will, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Brian. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate you coming back. Will, last time we were together, we talked about Digitize-a-Nation and the features and functionality and some of the benefits that your company can bring for companies as well as countries and municipalities. So I wanted to expand a little bit on that, Will, and talk about foreign investment. Why would using Digitize-a-Nation be beneficial to a country that's looking for investment?
Well, in our belief, we think that if a country maps itself and is able to map all its natural resources, including mineral wealth, natural potable water,
Yep.
and be able to baseline that, and as I mentioned in an earlier show, if then they develop, for example, a water plan. And
Sure.
what we've been told by some of the credit agencies is that if they have a water plan for 20, 50 years, more likely than not, they'll get a bump or position or two in their credit rating,
Right.
sovereign or state credit rating.
So now,
That shows that you're more credit worthy. Your risk has been diminished in terms of the credit rating agencies, and that, with the knowledge of your natural resources plus the bump in the credit rating, should attract more investment.
Right. So, but also, Will, I would think as well, is that it would put you as that country, so you're the country of Will land,
Okay.
or Brammer land. So in the country of Brammer land, we now know, so I'm your water resources manager. And so now I know how much fresh water that we have. So having that knowledge and having that data, would that, in essence, put us in a better position when we're negotiating for foreign investment, you would think, or?
Well, we would think so, because, and again, it goes, well, twofold. One, it goes back to getting the better credit rating, which is an outside body saying you're a better risk. Your risk is diminished. You're better,
Sure.
a better risk to bet on than others. And then your knowledge of fresh water. All people need water, and
Sure,
all crops
absolutely.
need water. So it points toward stability in your strive toward gaining greater stability. I mean, if you have water for your population, particularly to some countries that may face influx of immigration or refugees from other countries. So,
Sure.
Going back again to Africa, you have people moving because of strife,
Sure.
economic or environmental.
Sure.
Can you support this influx of people? What does that mean? You have desertification going on. So what does that mean for your crops, for your resources, for your own population? Do you need to start planning on how to either find other ways to mitigate that, other water sources, or do you need to move them? And even in terms of coastal areas, if you start having sea level rise and
Sure.
salt water starts invading into the fresh water, you lose
Sure.
the ability to use that fresh water. What does that mean for you, for your state, for your city, even for your town?
Got you. So it appears to me that being able to get the information that Digitize-a-Nation provides, it puts these countries, these government, these entities in a better position, not only to know what they have, how much it's worth, and where they can actually be able to, in certain instances, monetize their natural resources.
True.
And then obviously it puts them in a better position when they leverage, in a better position to when it comes time to discuss not only obviously the monetization other natural resources, but how the natural resources can be best used and the impact thereof. So, well, as always, we never have enough time, do we, when we begin to talk about all the great works that Digitize-a-Nation do. I'm going to thank you again for joining me once again, and I look forward to having you back on the show.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Will. We'll be right back.
Land Rover, above and beyond.
Thank you for joining me on the Big Law Business Report. Thank you so much for tuning in. I also want to thank my guests in the studios. Have a great week. God bless you. God bless your family. And we'll see you soon on the Big Law Business Report, where big law meets big business.
What does your office furniture say about you and your company? Is it making the right impression for your company and your employees? At PVI Office Furniture, we have office furniture for every budget. We'll make sure your office space is sending the right message.
Fast, excellent, affordable. Business grows with PVI. Visit our showroom in Frederick, Maryland, or online at pvipvi.com.
A&A is your doorway to the world, to new experiences and untapped opportunities, to destinations like Tokyo and the rest of Asia. Our renowned Japanese hospitality makes even the furthest journey as effortless as a single step. And it's all by design.
You know, when I first started out, it was all pencil and paper. The Surface Pro is very intuitive. With the pressure of my hand, I can draw lightly, just like I would with a real pencil. I've been a forensic artist for over 30 years. I do the composite sketches, which are the bad guy sketches. You need good resolution, powerful processor, because the computer has to start thinking as fast as my brain does. I do this because I want my artwork to help people.